for the most part.
Hello and welcome to tonight's show where we are going to be going over everything you need to know about bikes. But first off, well, we want to go over...
How you feeling, Nick?
We're feeling
How
good.
are you, buddy?
We're feeling really good.
Nick's feeling good.
We did a little pregame. Now I'm in the zone.
Yeah.
I'm feeling 115%. Am I a little too tall?
You're a touch tall.
I'm a little too... Or can you scroll? Is it scrolled up a little? Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
there we go. All right, my framing is impeccable.
I can scroll you in real life? That's amazing.
Yeah.
See you.
There we go.
You
That's
look
looking wonderful. Jason, what are we going to be chatting about tonight?
We're going to be continuing our conversation from the last episode and the one before?
Yeah.
We're just really milking this one subject.
Oh, we're milking it.
Utters. Talking a little bit more tonight about the process of getting your bike repaired, and mostly tonight, how your bike is checked over, checked in, inspected, quoted, and offered to you for repair when you take it into a bike shop. What happens? What's that look like? What maybe should it look like?
Yeah.
What's if you're in the chat and you're not a bike mechanic like most of our friends are, what's your experience in that? Are you fine with it, the way things go? If you are in the chat and you're a bike mechanic and you have things to say, then please say things.
Bikes backwards. Yeah.
Your face is backwards.
Well, we just, with the constraint of our space, we had to put it in the stand this way. It was bothering me as well. But then I was like, the show must go on. So let's party. Yeah, that brings another thing. Your mechanic, one aspect of the job, a little bit of professionalism, is the drivetrain always goes out. That's what Curtis is talking about. Drivetrain's not on my side, but we're talking. We're talking about bikes.
You're in, I believe it's some places like the Netherlands, they will just hang the bike from a rope or a chain.
Also acceptable.
In which case you could just be around it from any side, and there is no...
All right, rope stand.
There's no right side. There's always a drive side.
So last week we chatted about just that first interaction, starting to figure out what people need, what they want. Are they going to the bar on a Saturday night on their cruiser and they just want something to smash into curbs and dent and then wake up and roll it home? Or are they...
find it in the alley the next day?
And the true spectrum of what bike mechanics deal with is, that to a high level athlete that needs this bike to ride 100 and some miles in 2 days. So you got a pretty big, the spectrum is massive.
Spectrum of types of people and bikes and their needs is huge, and the person in the bike shop, they've got to be pretty well aware of that spectrum and all of the nuance of people and their bike's needs. And they got to be able to sort of sift through all that in a efficient and productive manner. So it's actually kind of a difficult job. Takes some decent skills. We got a question.
Lay it on me.
It says, how do y'all feel about shops that ask you to drop your bike off for an estimate rather than getting one on the spot?
I think you should, the first time a person comes into the shop, it should be in person. After there's an initial interaction and both people kind of know each other, then I think you can make an appointment and drop it off. But there always should be, I think, the first interaction should be in person. That's my opinion.
And it should include the estimate and not...
Yeah.
So, drop your bike off for an estimate. They drop the bike off for an estimate. So the bike is dropped off and then the estimate's given. You contact them later?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that happens.
I don't love it.
Sometimes somebody's like, I'm in a hurry. I gotta, this is my lunch break. Here's my bike. They were third person in line.
Sure, but our shops... doing this where you set up an appointment to bring your bike in, and then till you leave it with them for them to quote you, and then they quote you like later.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Some shops do that. Yeah.
I mean, I understand doing it if the customer wants to do that.
Yeah.
Like if they're like, oh, I gotta go, give me the quote later, contact me later. That's fine. But I know, I think we have a lot of kind of residual stuff that has sort of carried over from COVID times.
Yeah.
Where shops were so busy, and part of the way that a lot of shops I saw deal with their busyness was, and the whole like trying not to have close contact with people, was to have people set up an appointment to have their bike checked on, or quoted or inspected, and then at that point they would give them another date to bring it back to have it worked on. So you get your appointment like 2 weeks from now to drop it off, and then they give you a quote, and then after that you get another appointment to bring it back in another 2 or 4 weeks, and then they'd work on it, and hopefully it would only stay in the shop for a shorter amount of time. But those situations were pretty tough to
a lot of bike
navigate.
Shops don't have the space. Even if they're a decent sized shop, they can't hold on to 40, 60 bikes.
Yeah,
so,
space has always been one of the number one problems I've contended is one of the biggest issues that a shop has to deal with, because you need a lot of space to store bikes, but you really only want them to be there for a little while. And then when they're not there, you don't need the space for anything else. It's tough, which requires this is why shops end up paying so much in rent, because if they're a retail store, they're paying retail rates for the space they're in.
For their
whatever the square footage cost is going to be, they're paying for that, premium for retail, right? And that's going to include a large section of the building that's just used for storage. This was my situation. We were paying $4,500 a month for 2,200 square feet. A good, at least third of that space was just storage for bikes in repair. Probably close to half, almost. I don't know.
Yeah.
And when you think about how much money you're paying just to store stuff that's being worked on, and it wasn't. I mean, that was part of why we were bad at that business in that situation.
But I think the point is, I like to always see the bike. I want to have that first interaction with the customer there, with a person there.
Yep.
Because you both can see, hey, this thing is broken. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important.
It's a lot easier to keep the explanation of what's going on open and clear.
Yeah. Hey, this is broken. There are situations, it's not always perfect. People are busy. They want to just drop it off and get a quote later. I'll do it, but I'm not a fan of it. I always want to go over a bike with the person, because then it's awkward when you call and you're like, hey, I found this weird thing. It's gotten better because you can send videos and messages, pictures now.
Sure.
That makes it a lot better, because you could be like, hey, there's a cut in your sidewall. And they're like, it rode fine,
Liars.
It's like, yeah.
Customers are liars.
Yeah. It rode fine, but there was a crack in your down tube that happened on the last jump of your descent. Like, stuff like that happens when you work in shops long enough. You see it.
Yep.
So, there always can be that little bit of doubt where it's like, well, it was running fine when I dropped it off. I didn't know there was this huge problem. And that's where the trust and, with that first meeting, you can build some trust. You can say, hey, this is what we're checking, and that's what we're going to go over. That's why there's something between us right now.
Even though, in reality, there's nothing between
There's
Nick
nothing.
and me.
There's nothing between us.
Nothing could ever come between us. Not even this beautiful bicycle.
So in our last episode, we covered kind of like setting up that rapport, seeing what people are doing with their bike. And
It's all about them mad people skills.
Yeah. Soft skills. Gentle, soft skills.
Yeah.
Soft. And now we're
Soft
going to go...
skills, hard hands.
So, calloused hands.
I don't know.
And Leopold Brothers whiskey.
Yeah.
Bam. It's has a flavor of an old boot. And I love it.
It's a medium boot on this one.
A medium boot.
Medium old boot. Yeah.
An aged boot.
This boot was used in the fields, not in the factory.
I also want to bring up Curtis Cole's comment about dry pee. Do you want to take this one?
I have no idea what dry pee means.
Really? You call yourself a bike mechanic and you don't know about dry pee?
I guess I don't know. Please. So
Curtis, I need your help.
Curtis, pop on it and get on that chat.
Papa
buddy.
Curtis. Okay. Sometimes when endurance athletes gotta go, they
on the
gotta
bike.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, of course, yes.
Dry pee.
I thought this was some sort of situation that happens to bike mechanics who have used too much Triflow in their life and they end up with urological disorders. I'm terrified of the urological disorders I'm going to get when I'm older as a result of the things that
Stop using Triflow, just use extra virgin olive oil, dude.
for everything, yes.
Nick's got it.
It's a triathlete thing.
It's a try thing.
Yes, I'm all over that. I've been
No bike
many,
mechanics
many
like triathletes.
We were a felt dealer. If that doesn't tell you what I'm familiar with triathletes, it should.
Okay, so I literally triathletes are a mixed bag because sometimes they're really into cycling and then they do running and swimming.
Correct.
But then there's the opposite.
Yes.
Where the person loves to run and swim and they hate the bike.
Yep.
They're like, just do whatever, I don't care.
And they usually spend
this.
a ton on the bike.
Yeah.
Because they think that if they spend a ton on the bike, it will make it better.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
It doesn't make it better. You're still gonna hate cycling if you hate cycling.
Right.
And so that's one thing with triathletes. Like, if you don't like cycling, just do athlete. Do two of the things you like. Maybe just do one of the things.
Or, yeah, just do one of the things.
Yeah.
Try cycling by itself, not as a part of the sport in general. You might find you actually like that.
Yeah, and triathlete bikes aren't meant to be comfortable. They're meant to be
No.
torture devices that rattle
All about that
your
speed.
giblets.
Yeah. And make your piddle fall out.
Yeah. And
All
then
over
you-
the bike.
And then you pee on it, and then you give it to your bike mechanic
Yeah.
to take
yeah,
care
yeah.
of. And you're like, why does it smell like pee?
Because I peed on it.
Yeah. Oh, another one is putting your sticker over your cables. And then wondering,
Yeah.
being like, dude, I got to the race, I put my stuff on, and now none of my cables move. Because you put a big sticker over your cables.
So this comes up every time.
Every time.
Not pee or whatever, but what I'm about to say comes up every time. You know, with the whole peeing on your bike thing is leaking. Haha, gotcha. Over into a whole different genre of bicycling. Guess what?
Wheelies?
No, the peeing on your bike thing is showing up in a different kind of bike riding. Guess what it is?
Gravel. Everything's gravel.
Gravel. You know why?
Why?
Because these gravel events are so damn long. 120, 150, 200, 300 miles long.
Well,
And these guys at the front end of the race if they stop to pee, they'll lose. So the newest wave of bike peers are extreme. I don't even want to use the word extreme, but the distances are extreme. Very long distance gravel racers. So yes, anything that's like undesirable in any part of other bike riding, it just ends up as in gravel racing somehow.
yeah. Gravel takes everything. Suspension.
No, not just suspension. Shitty suspension. It gets the shitty version of suspension. Gravel can have it.
It gets the
peeing on
90s.
your bike. Oh, gravel gets that.
Gets the 90s
Geo,
version.
Yeah, it can get that.
Sure.
Crappy aero bars.
Sure.
Gravel gets crappy aero bars.
Yeah, let's get arrow, bro.
Let's put the
You're not even supposed
the
to ride
clip-on arrow
arrow.
bars.
Like most of the time.
You have, yes, you do.
You don't. No, you
No, it's all about sleeping on the bike.
You're
Sleeping
not
bars.
sleeping.
No, it's that resting position. Because they're just churning away just endless miles on the flint roads of Kansas.
Where there's no trees to actually go pee.
No, so you pee on the bike. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, you got to keep going.
All right, we need to get into checking in. So today we're going to go over Jason's check-in process of a bicycle, and I'm going to critique it on the way. We'll see if I find any holes.
Find the holes in it.
Find the holes. Be like, "Whoa, you didn't check that." Did you check that with a micrometer?
This one's a few years old.
No excuses, dude.
I know, because it still has 2538 West 32nd Avenue, Denver, Colorado written on it. So
if you go there, the shop will not be there.
no, the folks at the yoga studio will not help you with your bicycle.
So I'm going to put this on screen.
All right.
And to start this off, what do we got here at top of the list?
Okay, so well, this was intended to be print on a sheet of paper, one side on this stuff on one side, this stuff on the other side, and then you could cut the paper in half, and then a half a sheet of paper had the front and the back all on it. So it was making efficient use of paper it was a goal there. Anyway, you start out simply getting the customer name, information, and the whole shebang here is to try to get everything that's most commonly done for us on the front page to be able to do a quick estimate as possible. So our tune-ups were listed over there, a general labor fee for anything we needed to just throw in there, fork services, build up, brake blade. Anyway, you can read it. It was all there. All the basic stuff was more or less right there that we did most frequently. So you didn't have to write it all separately, because a lot of those, if you're familiar with, what is it, Walking Bird?
Yeah.
The service check-in forms.
The
bike
generic.
shops, yeah, they're super generic.
Print.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
with the carbon copies or whatever. You'd have to write everything, boom, boom, down on it. And this was designed, hopefully, to not have to do so much writing. You could just circle things and add it up.
So you have a menu of your
Services.
most common services.
Menu of the most common services right there.
Yep.
And some room to add some parts by hand over here. So then you pop down over here, you go to the other side of your sheet of paper. You put the bike up in the work stand, and one of the first things we did was measure the chain. For me, measuring the chain first was important because it immediately, well, one is when you check the shifting later, if you know the chain wear, you are sort of already prepared for whether or not the shifting could be good or bad based on whether or not the chain is worn. So you're prepared for that in your own mind, and also the customer is a little bit prepared that there might be a cost to replace the chain sort of at the outset once you sort of discuss how the shifting goes. So you measure the chain real quick, give it a go. You got 25, 50, 75, 100, whatever. And then a sort of subjective check on how clean the drivetrain is. Drivetrain cleanliness goes kind of hand in hand with chain wear. A chain that is, totally dry, has no lubricant on it, has a higher chance of being worn. Alternatively, a chain that's extremely dirty, really gritty, has a ton of lubricant on it and a ton of dirt stuck to it, also has an extremely high chance of being worn out. So your drivetrain cleanliness is going to, again, give you a little bit of information as to whether or not that chain might need to be replaced, and sort of prepare the customer for the fact that that might be a cost they're going to have to pay. And then you go through the shifting, check the front shifting, and the first thing I told our guys to do was, oh no, you ain't got no front shifting. That's
There's
okay.
no front shifting.
No front shifting.
Yep.
Give the cable a feel. Hopefully, if you're a good bike mechanic, that after a while, if a cable feels a certain stickiness,
Gummy.
difficulty in the push, if the shifting is going to be good or bad, you're like, oh, the shifting, and you'll be able to talk to the customer while you're doing this. Like, okay, I'm going to check your shifting. Oh, the cable feels pretty sticky. Your shifting's probably not going to be super great. And then they're usually going to be like, yeah, I've noticed that. And you're like, yeah, gotcha. And then the front, yeah, if the cable feels great, cool, mark great. Check the shifting. If shifting's good, good. If it's not great, the shifting's not great, but the cable feels great. You're like, oh, it just needs adjusted. Fine. Same thing with the rear.
Another thing that checking with the cables is sometimes shifter cables explode, and so
It's true.
What a good mechanic is checking is at the ends of the cable,
Yep.
and also when a shifter cable explodes, it deforms and you can see it. It looks a little weird,
Yep.
and your shifting goes to total crap.
Right.
And two things happen: either the shifting can kink and start to come apart, or the cable end breaks. So that's one thing that's getting checked.
Yep.
With the front and rear derailleur cables,
Right. And those
if you have a front derailleur.
And those are things that, yeah, by checking sort of first and mentioning to the customer as you're doing it, you're again sort of preparing for them for the fact that they might need to replace this part.
Yeah.
Because once you explain, oh, this is wrong, hopefully that'll vibe with their experience. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, it hasn't been good. Now you're telling me why. Hopefully you're kind of covering this as you go along. And they're aware that, oh, the cable's bad. I'm going to need to replace this cable and housing. So shifting in that way.
Also, kinks in the cable.
Yeah.
A little kink can actually cause a lot of misshifting, and you can't adjust it.
Right. But
Because-
you'll feel it if you're a good bike mechanic.
You'll feel
You'll
it.
feel that it just doesn't. It's not smooth like it's supposed to be.
Your cable turns into like a little spring. Like, let's say the bike fell and there was an exposed cable, and like puts a kink in it, like a nice good kink. That turns that little kink into a little spring. Now your shifting's gonna just be
Ooh, good.
off.
I like that analogy. A little spring. That's
Yeah, and so when you go to pull it, the tension's going into trying to pull the cable straight versus adjust the shifting.
And what we're trying to do is prime the customer's expectations that that these things aren't things that can be fixed with an adjustment.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of customers are. If you they think, oh, you want to avoid the belief that everything can just be adjusted, because you can't adjust broken, you can't adjust worn, you can't adjust damaged, and you have to be able to cover these things in kind of quickly and efficiently. On the shifting, you'll check limitation screws. Like, you'll check the back, be like, oh yeah, when it's going to go into the spokes or not, and you'll do a visual check on the derailleur hanger. Is it bent? Yes, it's bent. You'll check the brake pads.
You'll only check the limit screws if a dad has brought the bike in, because all dads turn limit screws.
Start turning screws.
They're like, I got a Radio Shack tool set. Hold on.
I saw that. I saw these screws were coming out.
I tightened them all the way
Tightened
down,
them in.
and now my shifter doesn't do anything.
Yes, correct. That's Dad Bike Mechanic.
Yep.
101. Anyway, but prior to, I guess before checking the brakes, just make a notation on the grip or tape condition. Like, oh, your grips are looking pretty sticky.
Pretty nasty.
Want to replace that, or your grip tape is torn in many places and it smells like old socks.
Ratty
We
grip
don't
tape.
want that. You're grabbing onto old socks when you grab your hand grips, and that's gross. If it has cables for the brakes,
Yeah.
check those in the same way you would for the shifting. Check the brake pad wear.
I was gonna say for dropper posts too, you're gonna want to check that.
Yep. check
That's
that cable
shift
feel.
housing.
Yep.
And there is a difference between shift housing and brake housing.
Yep.
Shift housing is straight lines inside, where brake is coiled if it's a cable brake.
Yep.
Because brakes are designed to have a little sponge in them, but shift is you want that pressure to go through the cable and not have any sponge.
Not to compress. Correct.
But it can also be a little bit weaker and fail at times.
Yep.
So checking, and there's shift housing. So yeah, it's the housing. The shift housing is on dropper posts.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly. Very good point. Where are we at? And then check the wheels. So you want to check if the wheels are true, straight, and you want to check if they need any tension done to them. Are they loose? Is one pair of them loose?
So we just run through and grab all of the
Kind of grab
spokes.
them all. Yep.
And this is going to say like, hey, this is evenly tensioned.
Yep.
Sometimes, especially on a mountain bike, you hit a square edge. You might have one spoke that's totally loose.
Yeah.
Everything else feels fine, but you have like a major ding, and one spoke's just like, bing, 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 bing,
Right.
ding, 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 ding.
And then the kind of final thing I had was, after you do that, actually pull the wheel out and give the bearings on the hubs a check to see if they are smooth, if they are crunchy, if they are noisy, if they are loose, if something else just feels wrong about the bearings in the hubs. Now, for us, with all of this, I was hoping, I think it was a fairly decent system where kind of what happened here would inform what tune-up package we would kind of steer the person towards.
That's smooth.
Smooth. Yeah, this bike doesn't have much on it.
You could
So, for instance, for us, one of the big divisions between tune-ups was whether or not you were going to pull the wheels off to true them in a truing stand. If they didn't need it, then usually that fell into our simple service tune-up, which was everything gets done without removing anything from the bike. Once you realize you have to pull the wheels and either adjust hubs or true wheels, then that would usually indicate some other things that the bike would move into our next tune-up package up, the complete service, which included that work as well as a check on the bottom bracket and removal of derailleurs if necessary. So some of these things were really designed to help guide the mechanic in which sort of tune-up package was best for the bike and for the customer. Okay. And then there was a final section just for any other notes like that the mechanic might have noticed or that the customer might have made.
So we checked the rim, we checked the hub.
Yeah.
We checked for dings, so we checked the tire.
Did I have tire condition? Oh yeah, tire condition is under, and headset, or I skipped those. Those are between wheel true and hub check. So yeah, check the headset, good or tight, and then check the tire condition.
So this tire's flat. Why
flat.
is it flat?
But does it have enough tread life on it?
Tons of tread life.
Tons of tread life.
And we're also looking for dry rot. So if you just squeeze the tire, is it cracking? Mm-hmm. Especially on like a mountain bike like this. This is a nice Maxxis dual compound tire. But that's not going to mean anything if it's 5 years old and it's been sitting out in the sun and totally dried out. Mm-hmm. So we want to check for dry rot. If it's tubeless, like, why is it flat? Has it just not been ridden in a while? What's going on? It might need more stands or whatever fluid you use in there. Yeah.
Curtis made a good comment on Shimano 10 or 11 speed road shifters because those are notorious for shredding the cable inside the shifter.
But yeah, you just get the nubbin.
Yeah.
It's stuck.
It gets stuck and it likes to stab you over and over as you're trying to get it out. So yeah.
The cable frays inside the shifter.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yep, I've dealt with a couple of those. Mm-hmm. And Shimano will not warranty it because the head of the shift cable has a little stamp on it. And if it's not a Shimano cable, you do not get a warranty.
No.
Nope.
You probably shouldn't deserve a warranty anyway because
you've been shifting.
You should have had your bike serviced by a professional.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen those go in a year.
Yeah.
It's crazy how some are just way worse than others at just destroying cables. But
you should run Shimano cables on Shimano shifters.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
So
agreed.
Next thing, since we're at the front of the bike, I've checked the hub. We're gonna check this big old fluid sack.
Fluid sack?
Suspension fork.
Oh.
Not you, dude. Jesus.
Just a fluid sack.
So suspension fork, like really quick, is it leaking?
Yeah, now we're gonna come into stuff that's not part of my little thing because it's part of mountain bikes, and this is where modern mountain bikes just depart from the norm a fair bit. They're an exception. So yeah, you got a fancy schmancy mountain bike. What's next? We've gone over all the other stuff. Now let's get into the really pricey things, huh?
Did we show one thing that I want as a mantra is that chains don't stretch, they wear. People need to understand that. So they lube their chains and they check them. They don't stretch. You're not that strong.
Oh, they don't stretch?
They don't stretch. They
What do you
wear.
mean they don't stretch?
They wear longer.
How would you prove that?
By looking at a diagram that you have made.
Wait, what?
Yes, you've made a diagram.
I'm so confused.
This is...
We got a good question in the queue, though, once we get back to it.
So yeah, chains don't stretch. You're not that strong.
I feel like we're preaching to the choir, but when this
Yeah.
video gets put out to the millions, which it'll make, they'll need
Yeah.
they need to grab this piece of information.
We have a little diagram here, and you can see the different parts.
I think I made this diagram in like 10.
It's still relevant. This
Yeah,
shows
yeah.
chain wear. But you have different pieces. As the chain rides, there's a pin, there's a bushing, and the plates that make up the chain. When you don't wear your chain, there's more friction. Or when you don't oil your chain, there's more friction.
Right.
Or if you oil it too much and a bunch of dirt sticks on it, there's more friction.
Yeah.
It wears. As all those pieces wear, the chain physically gets longer. But it's longer because of wear.
Correct.
So, and that's important because then just that little bit of language means, it's something that you should maintain and repair.
Absolutely.
Young man or lady. Person.
Absolutely.
What do we got for questions?
He says, how do you broach sealant brake bleeds and fork service needing to be performed before any discernible issues are noticed by the owner or the owner/rider? How do you broach this stuff? So we've gone over, good question, good timing. We've gone over the basics. So the stuff we've covered through the little checklist, right? It covers pretty much every bike for the most part, right? They all kind of have these things. But then we get into mountain bikes like this. Well, we've got a whole bunch of additional things that need to be done to this bike that need to be discussed with the customer. So what's next? How do we start to cover these questions next?
Yeah. Well,
You were about to go there. You started
just
talking
sit
about
down.
this sack of oil that
You
we
sit
have.
down, you look at it, and you say, would you look at that?
Well,
Would you look at that?
Whew, looky there.
Right out of the gate, is there oil coming out of these seals? And another thing, when someone's there and you're talking with them, the owner of this bike, you could say, when was it last serviced? Has it ever been serviced?
What does it mean?
Jason,
What does it mean to service a fork?
What is the maintenance frequency on a fork? Fox
Depends
fork.
on the fork. 50 hours.
50 hours.
You're supposed to remove the lowers and replace the bath oil and replace the dust wipers.
Yeah.
Although,
And that's a standard service.
that's
Everything's working great on the fork. All your adjustment knobs, your compression, rebound, it's holding air. All that's working. Don't touch the other stuff. If it's working, you're good. You just need to do a standard maintenance, which is drop the lowers, change the seals, put new fluid in it. Good to go.
for basic work like that. And then 100 hours or something like that is the what basically just the same thing, but then you service the damper and the as well.
That's the next.
Which is, but it kind of depends on the fork. Most forks nowadays are in the last at least 8 years or so, are pretty much divided between a couple of services. The lower leg service, which is basically pull the lower half off. There's going to be some bath oil in there. You'll get rid of. But I think if we go back to how do we get to this conversation first? Is kind of a tough one, especially when kind of his question. Oh, Chris Harris, get in on that. Answer these questions. He's raising his hand. You don't have to raise your hand. Just type in.
We can call you.
Correct me. That's fine. Actually, we should have him on the show for this part. But
well, then that's a great
part
point.
of the thing is okay. You have to get to this conversation, but why do you have to get to this conversation of needing to work on the fork? Is it just to make money?
It's to make so much money.
It's to make so much money. But why? Why do we have to get to this conversation with the customer? What's the point?
Because, especially in Colorado,
Okay.
you see bikes, and this nice gold coating is completely worn off, and you start to get these stripes
Yeah.
all around the fork.
Yep.
And at that point, the fork is done. Like, it's worn out.
At least that part of it.
The uppers,
Yeah.
and that's a good chunk of
Yeah,
the
it's-
replacement of the fork.
What, like $300 part? Yeah.
Once that's done, once this coating's worn off, and what's happening is as you're riding, that fork is flexing, and those seals are opening and letting a little bit of dirt in. It's gobbling up dirt. Your fork is gobbling dirt like a little Pac-Man of dirt. It's going, "Arr, arr, arr." So then what you have is essentially like sandpaper oil in the bottom of your fork.
Nobody wants that.
No one. And it smells, and it's funky.
Yeah.
And you got to clean that sandpaper oil out.
So the way I generally ask the question is I just ask the simple question. I go through all the other stuff first and then say, all right, when was the last time you had your fork serviced?
Yes.
Now, they might know, in which case, great. They kind of already understand. And if they say they don't know or they're not sure, they might indicate that they're unsure what that is. I'll just follow it up and say, do you know what a fork service is? And then they'll say yes or no. All right. Oh, yours goes faster than mine. All right. And then you get to, so then you'll be, okay, well, a suspension fork, you're going to have to explain sort of what goes into it. You've got an air spring or a coil spring. You have a damper, which is the control of the spring, both in and out. And it uses oil flowing through a couple of chambers, whatever, to keep that under control. And you have these little dials that control all of that stuff. Now, and then you have some oil in there that serves as the control, the damper, right? But then you also have oil that serves as a lubrication mechanism. And that's what you have down there. So you're gonna have to explain like kind of what some of this stuff is, and then like you said, now we replaced the oil in here and replaced these at this specific these intervals that the manufacturer recommends, and that's to do two things. One, to make sure the fork works really smoothly, like that lubricates the sliding tube, so it feels good when it slides, right?
It works.
Absolutely, and it also preserves it, keeps that wear from developing. So I don't know how accurate. In somebody can help me if my analogies are right here, because I try to connect it to cars, and I don't know cars, but I say the lowers is kind of like an oil change in your car.
Yeah.
Where you change it out and you change the seal, periodically to keep things running well over time, and it keeps the fork running well and it preserves it, right? Then when I explain the service of the damper, my analogy is that's like doing your transmission. I don't know how like accurate that is. It seems to kind of ring true with people in terms of like frequency or critical. Like the damper, like quality degrades over time as the oil gets shitty, and that happens, and then it can start to damage parts internally. All right, so you should do it frequently.
How many parts are in a fork?
Chris Harris, how many parts are inside of a Fox 36?
I mean, so the crazy thing is there are more parts inside your fork than there are the rest of the bike almost.
Right, yeah. No, exactly.
So, you think about that, and you have shafts moving within shafts that are lubricated.
Yes, you do. Sorry.
I'm trying to be serious. This is a serious conversation.
And I'm the worst.
And there's seals.
There are seals.
And there's lubricant.
Seals and lubricant.
And it's all inside this. And
gushing and sloshing.
I think people get into mountain biking, and they get like maybe their first... Maybe they started on a hardtail. Maybe they started on a full suspension that wasn't that nice. They didn't take care of. And then they go and they get the nice bike. They are like, I got my dream Santa Cruz or dream Pivot. But they don't realize like what's inside of the fork and the rear suspension. both the rear shock and the fork, a lot of moving parts. They need to be maintained. And it's a conversation. Like every time a bike comes in, I think where bike mechanics start to get a little jaded is you have to have that conversation again. Like there's a ton of moving parts in here. We have to do these frequencies of maintenance. Then bike mechanics' job is to also understand like what needs to be done, because there might be more service like, oh, you do a damper service every 100 hours, or you have to send that damper in. Shops can't do that service. That has to be done by Fox.
Right. Some shops do, some shops don't. It's harder. Because they take a lot more work.
So
Chris Harris makes some interesting points as a guy who knows this stuff inside and out. He says that apart from broken parts, he says there's nothing you can do to improve the riding experience in a full suspension service. So that means everything inside and out on both front and rear. That'll improve. Now, I would probably agree with that. Like,
yeah, it doesn't make it any better. Like, I think that's the
full service. It improves the overall bike because those two are working constantly.
Well, if we do the oil change analogy, if you do an oil change and your car drives better, you did something. It's broken.
Sure. Sure. Right.
You're like, wow, this drives really awesome. Well, you drove it dry. And it was clunking, and it, so it's maintenance. You don't notice a difference. It's just keeping up with stuff.
Yeah. So everything it's
you don't see anything.
And what I like about his point is like if somebody it connects to last week's episode, and what you're saying is this game of trying to figure out what a person actually wants out of the bike. Do they want like full performance package out of the bike, or do they just want it to not be broken? Like these are questions that people are doing. Okay, do you just not want it to wear out? Yes, fine, we'll just do that.
Yeah.
Do you need this? Do you want this bike to perform exceptionally well? You do? Great. This is what you have to do. And that's the sort of parsing you have to do as a technician, as somebody who's riding in, is determine what this person's like wants and needs are. And then you got to figure out, are they willing to pay for all those?
And a common thing is, oh, dude, can we hold off for the end of the season? Like,
don't hold up.
Like, no. Dude, can we just dude? It's September. I want to get my last rides in. I know it's pissing oil out of the seals, but dude, I just there's a race this weekend. Can we just wait?
You can do the seals and not the damper in that case. You can work with it, but
I don't know what's inside your fork. I just see oil coming out.
Right, you haven't taken it apart. They don't know.
So there could be something broken. So do I want to This is a good point, and there's the Barnett's bicycle mechanic manual,
yes.
and a lot of their decisions have to do with liability, and
sure.
So as a mechanic, if you say this bike's okay, and they go out and ride it, and it's not, that's on you.
Yep.
You checked it out. You're a professional.
Yeah.
And so there's this kind of dance that you're like, if I don't know it's good, I'm not going to send you out on it.
Yep.
So
correct. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
100% you've got to cover your bases on that.
The Barnett's manual says that if a brake, there's tricky things in there, and that's the Barnett's manual is like a bicycle mechanic certification. But if a person comes in and their brake pads are half worn out, should you replace them?
They're half worn out.
They're half worn out, so they still have half the wear.
See, but this is where I'd say "should" is a big word.
The brake pads are half worn out. Should you replace them?
How frequently are they riding? What time of year is it? Are they almost done?
The manual.
Does Barnett say replace them no matter what?
No matter what, replace them.
I disagree.
Because that's your call as a mechanic.
Yeah.
But I think the point there was, if you don't know any of those questions.
Sure.
Yeah. If you don't know how long they're going to ride.
He says, no, don't replace them.
No. I mean, and
but this is things you have to know, right? And this is so much, has to be comes down to the interaction between the mechanic, the technician, the service writer, whoever that person is, and this customer. Knowing these things, being able to communicate these things entirely. What?
Cameron's.
Yes. Oh, Cameron's all over that. He
Yeah.
knows what's up.
Safe and unsafe. There's things that I would ride, I would
Yeah.
never give to a customer.
Right.
I've ridden cracked frames. I've ridden.
Sure, yeah. Well, but it all depends on a ton. Okay, so if somebody's brake pads are half worn, it's Denver Front Range in July, August. It's dry. Those pads are going to last. And they're riding Front Range trails exclusively. That's it, right?
Totally.
Okay. Now, a wet environment, it's a totally different story, right? Those are going to
Have
wear
you
a
ever
whole lot
seen-
faster. Or if I know this person's racing Unbound in a week and a half, and their pads are halfway, I'm replacing them. Because Unbound, they could go through one muddy section and grind their pads to nothing in the course of 50 miles and still have to finish the race. So yeah, absolutely. So you
West
have to
Virginia,
know
dude.
what you're working with.
West Virginia.
Take me home,
Literally
baby.
seen disc brake pads in a weekend done, all the way down to the backing.
Oh, I've seen it happen in a single course of a single cyclocross race.
So
in various places in Wisconsin,
yeah,
because their dirt has like some granite in it or some stuff
dude, it
like
just
that, and it just shreds into nothing.
shreds.
Yeah, and especially if they're running organics, they're done in pretty quickly. We have to trust customers who choose highly complicated bikes to understand them somewhat. Otherwise, we have to devise a test to see who's smart enough to own a high-performance bike. Well, he's right, and part of what you're doing as a mechanic is sort of feeling out that knowledge base.
That's Phil, by the way.
Who?
That's Phil.
Oh, that's Phil?
Yeah, that's Phil.
Why is everybody's names not their names?
Because they want to be anonymous, so that's why I just use a first name.
Jeez.
Well,
I'm like,
we
I don't
call
know
him
who this
Nil.
person is. It was like Denny last week.
See, what he did is he swapped the letters.
Yes, I see it now.
The first letter.
Yeah. Like I'm not.
But we don't want to give the cipher
I'm
away.
not here playing word games while I'm drinking and talking bike shit. Come be on the show, buddy.
Yeah.
We tell everybody to be on the show and then we invite nobody.
Come be on the show.
I
would have Phil on the show. You know what Phil did? He worked at B-Cycle. We worked at B-Cycle together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, bike sharing.
So when the invitation's open
Phil,
for
hold
anybody to show up at 8:00 on
Yeah.
Tuesday night and just fucking be here. So whatever.
Okay, so Phil and I worked on the bike sharing program, and they were all the step-through style frames.
Yes, I
And
remember.
Constantly, people would ask, "When are the men's bikes coming?" They were all step-through.
Oh man.
They were like,
yeah.
when are I was like, you could put a broom handle on it, man, if you want to have a top tube there. But that was a funny, one of the many funny things that happened.
Yes.
Besides, like, random stuff being left in the basket.
Yeah,
Woo!
of course. Yeah,
We got some good stuff in those baskets, and bad stuff.
I'm sure.
Those B-Cycle baskets.
Anyway, yes.
I'd rather drink and ride than be on camera. Oh, come on.
Oh, please.
You're a star, and you know it.
You think we want to be on camera? We're on camera because we have to be. Like nobody else is doing this for forever humanity without us. We're just here because it's necessary. We didn't seek the fame.
Bring your marimba, maybe some type of musical instrument. Dude, can you be the musical act on our show?
I thought you do the musical thing too.
Phil's
so
way
does
better
Arnold's.
at music than I'm. Like halfway decent. Phil is substantially better at music. He went to school for it, I think.
So did Ryan.
Oh yeah, we found that out.
Yeah.
But we took a side quest to there.
Anyway, yes, you got to ask about the stuff. You got to ask plainly, and then you have to explain plainly what services can be done and why those are done.
And when do you open a can of worms?
All the time. Just keep it open because it's always open. Because people are always going to be like, well, because they're always going to be like, what can I get away with? And you are not the authority on that question. That's up to them. They know. I tell people, hey, this is my suggestion. You should do these. This is what the company suggests you do your service intervals at. The bike would ride real dope if you did that, but your bank account's your bank account.
This is what I recommend.
So if you say no, you say no. But I've recommended it. So.
And how many times have you recommended something? Have you ever had to make somebody sign a waiver?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you're like, hey, this is blatantly broken. I'm telling you it's broken.
But there's certain things where if it's broken,
you can just say I can't work.
We don't work on it.
Yeah.
We won't work on it. That'll happen. I'm trying to. My brain's kind of not coming up with the exact scenarios, but there are some things where like, okay, you can be like, well, this needs to be fixed, but it's not actually going to be a full-on safety issue on the bike. A super worn chain. Maybe we can put it that way.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this
worn
is
out drivetrain.
Your drivetrain's worn out, tip front to back, tip to toe, inside out. It's fucking shot. I don't want to spend any money on it. Okay, I'll clean it. I'll adjust it. You can't adjust worn. You can't adjust broken. It's not. I will not guarantee it works great, but it'll be. I'll give it back to you. You can give me your money. But I don't think that's a major safety issue.
Yeah.
But chain can break, but that's also a thing. So you do have to think about that. Like, is a chain super worn? It'll break, and that's a safety thing. They go to mash the pedals, the chain breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the strategy of asking a customer how much an individual ride is worth to them. If that amount surpasses the repair in question. Ooh, interesting. How much is a single bike ride to you?
Probably about $18. But I work on my own bikes.
I think if you add it up, but that's the thing, is like a full mountain bike service, right? Brake bleeds, suspension, inside out, shocks, forks, this shit gets up $800 to $1,000, $1,200 when you start to include parts for all this stuff. Pivots.
8 different bearings just in the back of this for the pivots, plus bushings. Yeah, it all wears out.
Yeah. I still fall under the need is a big word statement.
And one of the episodes we're doing next is like a price expectation for different bikes.
Yeah.
So like a single speed bike, like there's a reason people love single speed bikes for getting around the city.
Yeah.
Because they're cheap and easy. All the way up to this, like what would you budget an annual service? And I think that's one of the things that we really want to get across is budget for service. Because that's where there's a miscommunication. There's what people expect.
I just had an intrusive thought. I can't share it. So.
Okay. I have been losing a lot of weight and getting a little more attractive. So, but
those are welcome.
But the expectation of like people think, hey, a bike tune-up is $12, and then they come into the shop and you're like, hey, this is a performance machine. It's going to be a little bit more than $12.
You're gonna start at $150.
Yeah.
Just for the basics.
Yeah, just to like.
And then if you want this thing to be fucking rad, it's a lot.
I mean, if you've taken this and ridden it for 2 seasons and haven't done anything to it, your tires are going to be shot. You're probably going to need brake pads. You're going to need brake bleeds. You're going to need both suspension, the fork, and the shock serviced. And that's going to be anywhere from like $600 to $1,200. Like
easily.
I mean, tires are not cheap.
No, yeah. What
drivetrain?
Maxxis XO. Yeah, this is a what $90 tire. Yeah.
Times 2 plus brake pads plus chain. So that's one thing we're gonna work on an estimate. Spectrum. Like, what is a road bike? What's a gravel bike? What's a mountain bike? Like, what should you expect?
And it gets worse all the time because road bike now is different than road bike 8 years ago.
Yeah.
By a lot.
Speed.
By a lot. Yeah.
Go 8-speed. Go Claris. Shimano Claris.
This brings us back to
Oh, and
My
seat dropper post service.
fucking dropper post. Jeez. It's got squishiness on. Yeah, buy a new one. Fucking sorry.
If you own a dropper post and you love riding and you always want a dropper post, you buy 2 dropper posts.
Yes, sure.
Just buy 2. You're like, I
Yeah.
freaking love dropper posts. I love riding hard.
Yeah.
When one breaks, you throw the other one on.
Yeah, and then you buy another one to keep in the back of your car
Yeah.
for when you end up in Fruta and it stops working.
Or you have a solid post, so you can rip that thing out and put your solid post in.
Let's get to the peanut gallery here. What dropper post should you run? What should you run? Which dropper post is the best? I say best. I don't use superlatives. Anybody who knows me real well knows I don't use superlatives
I
in
have
my
a
life.
KS.
But which dropper post should you run? Curtis Cole says reverb. No, Curtis Cole says access because he loves not having cables on the front of his bike. So
Yeah, but like
reverb access, it's the same story. They still get squishy and they still suck. So and they still cost $800.
I have the KS Lev. It works. It hasn't broken. I probably should service it.
All right. The fluids expert himself says bike yoke revive. No question. Interesting.
Yeah.
I agree.
Industry. Yeah. You got a free
Chris Cole says
reverb.
false.
I have a
I run
free
reverbs
reverb.
because I get them for free and when others throw them away. Yeah. So Phil likes that when it squishes down 15 millimeters. That's fine.
You got a little suspension for your
Yeah, you
boys.
got that little squish. Yeah, it's fine. It's a suspension post and a dropper post all in one.
Oh.
I tell people to throw them all away all the time. I should just give them to Phil. Give me your info and I'll just like shovel reverbs at you.
Oh. Dude, so
Curtis Cole says his access is 4 years old. You have a KS? So
yeah,
do I have a KS that's 6 years old.
no issues. My bike is a 2018.
I replaced the cartridge in it once.
I actually need to
And-
throw a cable in it. It's starting to fray at the
My cable's fine, but I replaced the cartridge in it once.
yeah.
And that was easy. Like, it was what? I think it, $85 or so for the new one. You pop it out, pop a new one in, easy. Bled mine at Kenosha. He bled his what? Oh, his reverb. Yeah. Well, knowing what you can do is invaluable.
Oh.
knowing what to do.
Phil, your message got restricted because you said bled, I think.
Oh, interesting. That's funny.
Yeah, that's a funny one. I can't see it now because it said restricted. Can't say bled, dude. I bled my...
Harris makes a good point. Stram made a tool a product to lock out squishy post. Recommend taking it on rides with you. It was this little thing that you clamped onto the post. And then they made a way to bleed the squishiness out. You just have to take your saddle off. Unless you have the access, then you just pull the whole thing out. It's all... My KS has worked great for many years.
It even works better when it just sits in your garage.
Yeah, height right.
Height right. Classic.
It's such a tough conversation actually, because there's a bunch of them and like everything. I would actually love to hear a lot of these people's opinions on everything, because like I see a lot of the one-ups nowadays, but the one-ups seem like they have a lot of like fucking wiggle to them, and it drives me nuts.
Yes.
And they just like they don't come up quickly, smoothly. I don't think they're super awesome, but they're fine. I do like the revives. Bike yokes are great, and they actually are fairly straightforward to work on. Like you can service them inside and out. And I've done it, and I'm a dummy, so it's just fine. Pick one and be a dick about it. That's the truth. That's the truth about everything. If you believe whatever you have must be the best. Always.
Yeah.
I have a SDG on my new bike. I don't love it. It's fine. It's operational, but it's slow. It goes
yeah.
It's not great. But there weren't a lot of size options for that fucking status.
I think to summarize it.
Summarize it.
Summarize it.
Summarize it.
Not the dropper post, but the bike check-in.
Yeah. Let's get back to what we were talking about.
Yeah, but we're checking in. Did we touch on? We didn't.
Ooh, let's
what did
touch
we
it.
touch on it? Did we touch on the bike? This is someone else's bike. I feel weird.
Yeah.
But
It's a new customer. He doesn't even know his bike's on TV. I should probably made him
a good mechanic.
sign a waiver.
Yeah. Release.
A release.
Yeah. TV release.
That your bike was on air.
But a good mechanic's going to have a checklist and run through that checklist with you. You're both going to see problems, so you know it needs to be fixed. And then there's going to be a price and time expectation set.
Yes.
Your bike is going to be done on this. Or
And it's
I
going
need
to cost
to order
this, and we're going to do this.
I need to order parts, and I'll be able to tell you that your bike will be done. I'll let you know Thursday when the parts come in.
Yep.
So you're setting a time and price expectation. You've gone through the bike
Time, price, and
together.
project. Time, price, and like what we're doing. This is a what's a pet peeve? Is the customer needs to know what will be done to their bike.
Yes.
Not just like, oh, we're gonna
do a tune-up.
tune it up and adjust it. We went on this in the other show. Like they
It's
need
a
to know.
tune-up.
They need to know what will be done, how much it will cost. And I say this as somebody who has actually kind of been bad about it lately, which is why I'm working on being better. Working on being better at it because we could all be better at what we do.
Yeah. Strive for greatness.
Yeah. So
Settle
I'm
for
trying to be better.
mediocrity.
Well, this was hilarious because we were going through pulling up my stuff that I had done before, and I was like, and I have this other software system that I'm using now, Hub Tiger, to keep track of my services and communicate with my customers and stuff. And it's funny, you were even here when the customer picked up his bike earlier. He's like, "Oh, look at you, you're all professional now." I was like, "Well, I've fucking done this before, like."
I've been professional.
Like I've been professional before.
Ooh.
But we were doing this and we were going back through this. I was like, oh shoot, I have all this shit, like check-in sheets for pickup, like explanations for chain wear. I couldn't find it. I had a whole we had a whole paper for showing worn out fork stanchions and the greasy seals and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that when people are like, well, why do I have to do that? Because, well, if you don't do that, this is what happens. So,
Underneath, like this section right here, red underneath your fork,
yeah.
that's getting the wear. And when you start to see it creep up on the fork, it's too late. Up on the upper, the stanchion. How do you say stanchion? Because I say stanchion like a real person.
So I feel like the industry has started to shy away from the word stanchion.
Really?
And that's how I feel. Harris, help us out here, bud. Anybody else, help us out. What are we calling these now? I know that we're going with the CSU is the whole unit. Crown Steer Unit, I believe. Is that what it's called?
Uppers?
We've had that much whiskey and it's in my brain at this point. Stanchion, sometimes I'll just say sliding tubes, which I see like written in like people's.
It sounds like something.
It sounds dumb, but stanchion. I don't know any other world where the word stanchion is used. Like I don't know what a stanchion is other than fucking this.
It?
Just say uppers. Well, yeah, I like uppers. Uppers.
Yeah,
uppers is good.
And some people call them stanchions.
Stanchions. No, it's not stanchions. I mean, once you pull them out, sometimes it's stanky in there. Chris Harris goes uppers or CSU. Uppers.
These stanchions.
But does uppers just sound... You got your uppers and your downers, and we want to make sure your uppers don't get all scratched up on your downers.
Yeah.
You understand?
You get a mud puddle in there, puddle of mud.
At a certain point, does it sound like we're just using words
up
that we hope people get instead of...
I feel like stanchion.
Stanchion?
Stanchion.
I'm Googling the word stanchion right now. Stanchion is an upright bar,
stanchion,
post, or frame forming a support or barrier.
I love it.
A frame that holds the head of a cow in place to facilitate milking.
What? Is this some dairy?
What is the purpose of a stanchion? It's an upright pole or wall-mounted housing that typically contains a retractable belt or rope to create specific areas for queuing or to keep folks away from restricted areas. It has, boy, none of this has anything to do with this.
Stanchions are actually used
I
to
just
milk
gave this
cows.
a like backhanded stroke. It felt a little too intimate. I'm not going to do that anymore.
Oh.
We're done with stanchion. Uppers.
Stanchion.
I like uppers.
Uppers.
I wish there was like a cooler technical word for it than uppers.
Stanchion, dude. It's for milking your cow, dude. You just sit here and you milk your upper.
Yeah, milk that upper so that it comes out the bottom.
Everyone Google the word stanchion.
Everybody, you'll be happy. You're gonna be better.
You're gonna be better off.
Oh boy.
Slider tubes. Slidey tubey things.
See, I've gone with sliding tubes before as well, because it is a tube and it slides. So okay, that's great. Uppers is fine. There's no downers though, just uppers.
Could these
uppers and lowers?
What if-
Uppers and lowers works great.
What if it's a
we
downer
still-
bike? Just a downer bike, dude.
But here's my question: where the fuck did we start using stanchions then?
Farmers.
If
dude.
it was a like thing to hold a cow in place to milk it, how did we start using it for this? What is wrong with us? Like,
everything comes from
Dude.
farmers, dude. Farmers only.
farmers rule the world.
Yeah,
Dude,
dude.
farmers run
That's
things.
where we get our food.
I like slide. Curtis likes slide tubes, not slider tubes, not sliding tubes.
I like slidey
Slide
tubes.
Do you know what slides are?
Yeah, I got one in the backyard.
No, they're like, I used to call them slippers or flip flops. Now kids like they have the shoes. The kids these days
With their shoes.
they got the shoes that they're like foam, but they don't have the little toe separator. You
Yeah,
just put your
thong.
whole foot, and they don't have the toe thong.
Toe thong.
But they call them slides.
What?
Yeah.
No, it's a flip flop.
No. It's not the foot. It's the like thick foam ones with the big fat strap over the top of the foot. Kind of.
Oh. Yeah. Gym shoes.
Years ago, I would have called it a slipper or a flip flop or whatever. They call them slides. I'm excited because it came down the lefty. We got hard hitting journalism tonight.
Yeah.
We've even Googled shit.
I
That's
know.
great.
Feel like we have several learned people in the comments.
We always have learned people in the comments. Blingers.
But for example, we got a brake lever right here that needs to get rebuilt. It's all sticky.
It's so sticky, it's stuck.
Yeah, it's actually just stuck down. At first, I thought the pads had been advanced, but no, it just needs to get rebuilt.
Yeah.
So you run into stuff like that.
Yep.
So, what do you got on the docket for this bike we're actually looking at right now?
So this bike is a few years old, but it doesn't have very many miles on it. It's just
It looks really clean.
yeah, his chain still has the factory grease on it.
The sticky grease.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so like there's no miles. I mean, there's still hair
There's nubbins on there.
on all the things, but it's been sitting in his garage, and yeah, the brake pistons swelled up just from sitting. So we're gonna do a replace his master cylinder pistons, give it a little wash, double check that everything's tight, and send him on his way. He's going to Fruta. Has not ridden the bike in 3 years.
I mean,
going
it's a
to Fruta
Mach
and-
5.5. This is a little bit older bike, but like,
Yeah, I think it's a 2018.
I actually
be
really
newer.
liked.
Might be
We had pivots at Salvage Jetty, and I rode them. I rode a couple. Like the 5.5 was really fun. It was a good travel bike. Like I like just under 6 inches of travel in the
Okay.
rear. 6 in the rear.
6 in the rear.
Yep. That's what I
We
like.
need more than 6 up front. We're being very good about not cracking jokes right now. I mean, cracking jokes.
I'm not.
This isn't
This is
funny. We're
what I
talking about
like.
mountain bikes.
5.5.
Mountain bikes is serious fucking business.
Listen, we don't mess around. We're enthusiasts. Okay.
That's right. you're an enthusiast. I'm a goddamn.
Do you see this track coat? I wore this.
Professional.
I wore this
saw
for Curtis.
your Ukrainian track jacket.
Listen, in my country, we don't have bikes.
No? What do you have?
We have wagons. I take you for a wagon ride. Yes?
Well, ride your wagon.
Inappropriate.
All right. We got questions. How about washing bikes and charging for it?
Yes, you charge. Well, that could be part of a tune-up. I think the nicer tune-up, yes, if bike comes in full of...
know their bike is too dirty to service.
Too dirty to service. Ooh. I'd like to see that bike. I want to see pictures.
This is an interesting one for me because I wash every single bike that comes in. Almost without exception, unless it's just really doesn't. And I don't charge extra for it. I do consider it a kind of like a standard service. Like for me, if your bike comes to me, you're going to get it back looking clean. But I'm not going to take your drivetrain off. I've got a pretty good freaking system for washing a bike outside at my workstation with everything on the bike.
Yeah,
I've seen it. And doing a really, I've been doing it that way for 15 years.
He listens to a mix of Enya and
the Smashing Pumpkins.
Music. Yeah.
I don't know what they
Sarah
are.
McLachlan.
Yes.
Just.
My opinion. Well, I look at it two ways. One is a customer should get a bike back clean no matter what. It's kind of like in some places where you go to get your oil changed and they vacuum it out inside real quick. That's cool. That's nice. But if you get your bike back from me, it needs to look good.
Premium.
When you like, if you walk out from having your bike worked on with me, and you go to your trail, and your buddies see you, and your bike is
premium,
nice, that's what I want. All right. And so, but the thing is, it takes me 10 minutes to do that, dude. Like I can do that fast. I can do it quickly, efficiently. The other thing it does, and this is very important, is for me, it makes it way easier to work on your bike.
People pay us $125. Curtis Cole, jeez Louise,
dude. You can't drop that shit when we're this far into this bottle.
You can't do that.
I can't fucking.
I'm gonna say
$125 to wash your bike. That's robbery.
You have groomed
and you're
your
part
customer.
Of it. You're part of the system, man. You're part of the problem.
You've groomed your customers like a cult leader.
A bike wash takes 10 minutes. If it's extra super, well, but here's the thing: if it's extra super gross, okay, what does extra super gross mean? It can mean a couple of things. One, if it's a mountain bike, it's just mud.
If you're dealing with poop,
right? Poop's an exception. Poop and spider webs are and vomit. Webs. Yeah, I will charge.
See, spider webs don't bother me.
$1,000 if a spider crawls out of your fucking shifter while I'm working on your bike. No question. $1,000 done. Spider fee. No, but a mountain bike will mostly be like, oh, I rode Apex in April and there's mud and snow. I spray it off with a hose. The mud comes off. We're done. No big deal. And then I scrub it with some dish soap.
Here's the thing.
But let me finish.
Finish your thought.
The other thing is if drivetrain can be super, super gross and nasty, right? That's usually road bikes. Because those guys, those people, jeez, we've been drinking.
Yep.
Those people, they just keep adding lube to their chain. They just ride, go out and ride.
It's called white lightning.
And then,
waxy.
I won't clean white lightning. I will throw all of it away.
It's a waxy cover.
It takes a second for me to realize it's white lightning, and then I'm out. I tap out. The chain's coming off, cassette's coming off. We're done. I'm not cleaning it. We're replacing it.
Done.
But no, if it's super gross, well, that's a different thing. If it's super gross, one, the chances that the chain is worn is really high. You're going to need to take it off anyway. So why don't even worry about cleaning it? Who cares? And then the cassette, yeah, you'll get it clean. No big deal.
Yeah.
And there's also a chance it might get replaced. So bikes need to be clean. They need to be clean because if that is a proper service for a customer. Give them a clean bike. They're going to be happy. The other thing is it's easier to work on a clean bike. No question. Like, if I'm working on a bike, in order for everything to work well on a bike, it's got to be clean. I'm not going to adjust shit. All right? I'm not going to try to, like, adjust dirty things. You can't do it. It has to be clean.
Yeah, I think the greasy nasty is more when you have to work around that gets tough. Mud is just, it needs a hose down. Maybe it's a couple bucks extra. You just say, hey, it was real muddy. I had to go hose it down. It took, 10, 15 minutes more.
Yeah. And you can throw an extra on.
Yeah.
And tell, but that's a communication thing. Like, people love it when you communicate. It's actually really great.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, yeah, your bike was extra gross.
I can tell when you walked in and you were standing next to it, it was really dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Would you go to work like that?
On my tune-up checklist, there's a notation section under bike wash. I don't have it up here, but for each of my tune-up checklist, there's like under bike wash, there's notes. Oh, was it clean? Was it extra dirty? What do you have to say about it?
A point I wanted to make was, like, one of the first things I learned working at a bike shop was no one notices certain things. Like people don't notice that you had a shock serviced. People don't see it and go, "Oh my God, that's awesome!" You know what they notice? Their bike's clean.
The bike's clean and it's polished.
And when they're paying you, $500 for a full service, just wipe the bike down. In a full service. If somebody comes in and is like kind of nickel and dime, and you're like, "Hey, I only have $65. It's like, well, let's get you taken care of, but I'm probably not going to go into detailing your bike.
No, but I am going to take it to my wash station. I'm going to soak it in degreaser.
It's the whole bike?
The whole bike. Yeah.
Submerged.
Well, we wanted to do this other times as well. If I could have a giant tank of degreaser, you just dunk the bike into it, and then a giant tank of dry flow. After you dunk it in here, dry it, dunk it in the other one.
Done.
I think that's what Curtis is saying that they do at Wheat Ridge.
Yeah. Just a
they
full
just have
tanks.
Giant fucking tanks.
Huge tanks.
They just send bikes in on racks, dunk them in one.
I'm just seeing a car wash.
It's
scenario.
Olympic pool sized ultrasonic cleaner. And then they dunk it over, and it's just tri-flow, and it comes out. Everything is shiny, lubricated.
Perfect.
Put the brake pads back in. You're done.
Done.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Game over.
Just a full tri-flow patina.
Curtis is trying to justify what they do over there for 120. Pull the drivetrain parts off.
What? See, that sounds like
derailleurs are coming off and cables, but then you're readjusting. But then you're readjusting. But that's not a bolt check, because if you have to pull a derailleur off the bike, run it through a parts cleaner, put it back on.
Let's get the story straight, dude.
Let's get the story straight.
Let's get the story straight.
It sounds like a chain is coming off, and maybe a crankset and a cassette. Those parts are coming off. That's drivetrain parts. We're gonna Curtis stepping up tonight.
$125 bike wash. Better come with an adjustment.
But what's the value in $125 in having your cassette and crankset run through an ultrasonic cleaner?
I feel like though,
that stuff can be scrubbed on bike to clean, and there's no difference.
I feel like though sometimes bike mechanics have a bad day, and then a dirty bike comes in, and then they're like, "This dirty bike! I'm charging them. I'm charging them, Jerry.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm charging them.
I give any mechanic any time to be able to apply a frustration fee, even if the bike at hand isn't the cause of it. Fucking charge him. Sorry, your bike was last of the day, and he's already annoyed. Yeah. You get to pay. Think of it as paying it forward, sort of retroactively. And you get to do that. And we're just doing it for you.
Reverse.
We're helping you be a better human.
Unconsenting.
Yeah.
Done.
Exactly.
Oh, now we're just getting ridiculous. But
False. No,
get-
it's called getting real, bro.
welcome to the party.
Yeah. It's 9:20. I'm having fun,
9:20.
but we should probably be done.
Yep, those babies, they wake up early.
And I don't have, and not
And
tomorrow.
you have like 5 of them.
but
You have like 5 kids.
you got to go back to our previous shows for that joke. That's a good callback.
Yeah.
3, only 3. It feels like so many more.
And remember,
But they're out of school, so I get to sleep in tomorrow.
but what, they don't wake up at 5 a.m.?
Not anymore.
Because my kids wake up at 5 a.m. every
Dude, my
morning.
kids are 17, 13, and 8.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
My 2-year-old comes in and goes, Dada, Dada, Dada.
Oh yeah, that's fine unless you get, oh boy, I'm gonna get in trouble for this if she ever finds out. Unless you get hit with like when maybe they're 17 and she's just is like, oh hey Dad, I'm gonna go to the museum today with a boy you've never met. What? That's a different ball game than da. Those are different things.
Those
So,
are different days. I still love to sleep in.
Sleeping in's fine. I think I would
I
give
can't
up.
sleep in past 6:30.
I think I would give up. I would rather get up early than deal with I'm meeting a boy you've never met.
What's his name? Jerry?
Fucking Toby.
Toby? Yeah, I wouldn't go with that. Toby?
Nah, Toby was fine. He's a kid who bought a used Audi that he's trying to remake as a rally car or something like that.
Okay.
Good for him.
Rule 1, don't go with an Audi. Just don't try to rebuild an Audi.
But on the flip side, I have respect for a kid who's going to work on stuff on his own.
Yeah.
You know what? I give
Just,
that credit. So if my daughter ever watches this video, be like, yes, I gave you shit for surprising me about meeting the boy, and then the boy
he wasn't half bad?
seems, well, I mean, he's just a kid who works on cars. It's fine. There's worse people in the world.
But it's an Audi, man. It's going to get expensive.
And she's 17. Like, this isn't the guy she's going to be with. So
Yeah. So on that note,
everybody's like, wrong chat. What the fuck? This is bicycle therapy. This is how we go. This goes
Apex
so
tomorrow,
many
what
ways.
time, Jeff Young? You name a time, I'll be there.
Will you be there?
Yeah, I'm fit. I'm in shape. I've been training.
And I'm about to be hungover.
And I'm gonna wake up at 5 a.m. with babies.
Yeah.
So Apex tomorrow.
Welcome to the chat, everybody. This is how
Even
it
though
goes.
I don't really like Apex, honestly,
It's fun.
I'd rather go to Floyd Hill, drive up the road
It's
a little
farther
more.
away.
Drive up the road a little more.
No.
But you
Remember,
get to full rip.
This is the conversation that we have with customers. The person, the need, the expectation, right?
Do you want a full rip?
No, I want to be able to get to a trail
Yeah.
within 20 minutes of my house.
I see a bunch of other people.
Ride for 1 hour up and have a rowdy fun down and be done, then head 20 minutes back to my house. That's what I want. You know what does that? Not fucking Floyd Hill. Floyd doesn't do that for me.
It's 5 minutes up the road.
It's not 5 minutes.
Maybe
It's
7.
40.
7 minutes up the road.
You're such
How
a
are you
liar.
driving?
Not true.
Is your vehicle turbo? That's the problem. Is you don't have a turbocharged
That's
vehicle.
not even the case. That's not true.
The Ford Flex does not have a turbo.
Turbos don't make
They
life
get you there
better.
faster.
They don't.
They do, and
False.
they don't have lag from altitude. Yeah, they get more oxygen to the engine. They make
Whatever,
you go
your mom
faster.
has lag from altitude.
Ugh. But we're getting to the end of the show.
Nothing can come between us.
Nothing. And so we covered, going over
Yeah, check your
what to
bike
check
and-
your bike. We check over it. We look over it. We have a conversation. And then we come up with a plan. And then we execute the plan.
Two-sided. If you're a bike mechanic, listen to the customer, and ask questions and explain clearly without sounding like a douche and without sounding like you're speaking down to them. Be relatable and be cool at the same time. Just do that. It's fine. It's easy. And if you're a customer, ask good questions. Listen to the mechanic without assuming that he's speaking down to you. Respond in kind with respect and with as much knowledge as you have, such as to communicate to him that you understand what he's saying and you respect what he has to say without insulting him. We're not trying to insult people either direction. That's all we're asking. Both of you toss the ball of respect and care and concern back and forth. And you know what you'll get in the end? You know what you'll get? You'll get a good bike.
Yeah.
Repaired well at a decent price, and you'll be happy.
Everyone will be happy.
And a bike mechanic will get paid a meager amount, as most of the money that he makes goes to the retail store that he supports.
Oh. Well, remember, folks.
11 a.m. Mountain Time. 11? 11, he says.
Well, remember, folks. Chains don't stretch. They
Kevin
wear.
showed up at the end. Hey, buddy. You can catch up.
Okay, I'm trying to get a sign, a sign out. My
Sorry,
sign out is,
but Kevin showed up.
remember, folks, chains don't stretch. They
Where?
Thank you.
That was great. Thanks, guys.